Hi, I'm Alex and I'm the YouTube newbie. Actually, it's the YouTube newbie 2.0, the YouTube newbie part 2. This is where and when they concoct the scheme. The plan, thought of by Simon, same in the Netflix series, actually happens during this, their first dance at the ball, after their wedding repartee while waltzing. They multitask. And unlike what happens in the Netflix series, the scheme didn't happen because Daphne needed to be saved from ruin. Simon proposed it because he wanted an out from being stalked by ambitious mamas and offered it to Daphne, and this is a departure from the series, to make her more desirable to other men. See, in the book, Daphne always gets friend-zoned. I know, but the term kind of applies to her here, and with no malice really. So they don't view her, the men, don't view her as someone desirable. She says that she's still unmarried because, in her own words, everyone sees me as a friend. No one ever has any romantic interest in me, except Nigel. So Simon's reason of men are always interested in a woman if they think other men are interested, which he also says in the series, is due to this. So to sum up the difference, in the Netflix series, it's to save Daphne from ruin because of what happened with Nigel Burbrook and how, all of that stuff. In the books, it's so she no longer gets friend-zoned. So they both agree, and the next day, in the Netflix series, Daphne and Simon started to hang out and they go on dates. Kind of the same in the books, but big difference, they let Anthony in on the secret. See, Anthony was incensed because Simon appears to be breaking the bro code, the one where family is off limits. So they had to tell him. Of course, he thinks it's stupid, but goes along with it because he does see the benefits for Daphne. In this Netflix series, Anthony's in the dark. Anyway, the dates. Because this is a historical romance novel set in the Regency period, book Simon isn't quite so bold. The spoon scene never happened. The scene where Simon basically gives WAP tips to Daphne never happened. And the biggest plot in the Netflix series that isn't in the book, the prince. Yeah, not in the book. But the part where Anthony catches them in flagrante delicto, that happens. In the duel, that happens. The heartfelt speech to the queen didn't happen. The scene where Mama Bridgerton tries and sort of fails to explain the birds and the bees happens. And actually it's a lot funnier in the book because Daphne asks her, so you did this 8 times? Because there are 8 Bridgerton children. And her mother blushes furiously and says that no, not just 8 times, because sometimes you do it because you like to. Read the book. I found it funnier than the scene on Netflix. For one, Daphne is actually quite eager for this conversation. I've waited for this all week, which, shocks Mama. The wedding. Kind of the same since Daphne only remembered the funny moments, book Daphne anyway, which were not shown in the series. And I know you're waiting for this, the wedding night. They were different. For one thing, the "I burn for you" line didn't happen in the book. In the Netflix series, the wedding night was pretty intense. In the book, it starts out funny because remember Simon telling Daphne how he couldn't marry her because he can't have children? Well, Daphne, having had what passes for sex education for women in Regency England, thought that meant he couldn't have sex, as in he's impotent, which, sends Simon into paroxysms of laughter. And then there was sexing. But in the book, the sexing was confined mostly in the bedroom. In the Netflix series, it was everywhere, and the bedroom. The library against the ladder, the mausoleum in front of the swans near the lake, all to the tune of an orchestral version of Taylor Swift's Wildest Dreams. But, the course of true love never runs smooth. Our lovely couple has to hit a snag. In the Netflix series, Simon doesn't come inside Daphne, but this is also what convinces her that he did lie to her. Remember that earlier scene when Mrs. Coulson, the housekeeper, tells Daphne the story of Simon's parents, how his mother died in childbirth, and how his father always wanted a son and blamed his wife when she miscarried? Then Mrs. Coulson says, "A womb won't quicken without strong, healthy seed." In the series, Daphne clues into this when during one of their many romps. After she'd spoken with Mrs. Coulson and the wheels started turning, she noticed Simon spent on her handkerchief. She then marches to her maid's room and asks, essentially, for a rushed version of sex ed, albeit with more specifics. Then after Daphne and Simon have dinner, they have sex. And I honestly don't know if Simon came in her or not. But that's when she accuses him, and Simon basically admits it, then they fight. From then on, their marriage becomes strained and they sleep in separate bedrooms. So that awful scene in the book doesn't exactly happen in the series. Book Simon comes home drunk because he and Daphne had been fighting because of the lie. He manages to convince her to stay with him in bed, and she does. Then she is awakened later, and as she talks to him and starts basically caressing him in his sleep, he responds, which she realizes that this is when she could do whatever she wanted, have whatever she wanted. So she basically giddy ups and rides him like a cowgirl and being super extra, impressing even Simon, as is written in the book. But things take a turn when he starts climaxing, and she essentially uses what strength she has to pin him down so he couldn't pull out. He's angry and is feeling betrayed, and then he starts to stutter, which makes him angrier with her, with himself. He's just a confusing mass of emotions at this point. And then he leaves for one of his other estates. Daphne goes to London and her brothers visit. One day, she assumes she's pregnant and sends a letter with Anthony to send to Simon. Simon receives that letter and promptly sets out for London. In the Netflix series, this doesn't happen. They're basically living separate lives, like I said, apart from posing for a portrait, like several social engagements, and then the ball. So in the book, Simon goes after Daphne, who'd been out riding at Hyde Park, and she tells him that, as it turns out, she's not pregnant. They don't exactly resolve things there, but at least they're talking. So Daphne's brother sort of accosts them at Simon's house, demanding that he convince them that he loves her, which sort of terrifies Daphne. But Simon then takes her to another part of the house, and in there actually professes his love, which he then does unknowingly in front of her brothers, who followed them. And then sex. This time they both finish together, inside, with enthusiastic consent on both sides. In the Netflix series, we have sort of the same, but in the rain. Not just the Bridgerton boys as audience, but all of their guests. And then sex. This time they both finish together, inside, with enthusiastic consent on both sides. So anyway, those are the major differences between the Netflix series and the book. Like I said, I have a few things that I wanted to comment on. This has been said and has been written all throughout this entire thing. How it may be race baiting because they just cast black actors just for the sake of it or for token stuff. I don't know what. I'm not here to second guess the series creators, the writers' decisions, but as an audience, and again, from the lens of a person of color who is not black and has no issues of representation in my own life, I didn't think it was race baiting. I didn't think it mattered all that much, or not it mattered negatively, or it had a negative impact, so to speak, to the story. I was immersed in the story. I liked the story. I liked the characters, like I mentioned before. It's not an issue for me. However, I see where this may be an issue for black people. I don't think, from what I've seen like other YouTubers discuss as well, that it's not really that they think that this is tokenism, but much of the hype surrounding the whole casting of black characters, of black actors for white characters, the hype was there. Like, they hyped it up, right? And I think the expectation was set that sure, okay, now you have black people here, let's see how you do with them, let's see how you write them. But it's not really mentioned, you know, it's not really all that dealt with, probably because the expectation in the story is that it's there, it's not an issue in the story. It does get sort of addressed, you know, when that one time when Lady Danbury and Simon talk about how, you know, the king fell in love with one of us and thus elevating us, which, you know, can be problematic in that sense already. So I think that expectations were just built up, that there would be a discussion of race, you know, more than there was in the series. The thing is, in the story, there isn't anything about that, because in the story, they're all white. Like, as far as I know, historically speaking, there weren't really people of color who held titles at the time. Like, even now, like, who we know of as a person of color who does hold a title is Meghan Markle, who's Prince Harry's wife and the Duchess of Sussex, I believe. So at that time, there really weren't black people holding titles. So that was a non-issue in the book. However, I understand the desire to cast black actors for diversity's sake. I understand that. But I also understand, you know, that they were hired because they were good and they were perfect in, you know, the roles. I get that. And I think as audience members, we have our own biases against certain decisions made by casting directors. We hold these biases close to us, these thoughts, these ideals close to us. But I don't think that that means that we can't enjoy the story for itself. You know, we can hold two contrasting ideas together. They say it's a sign of intelligence if you're able to do that. It's not cognitive dissonance. That's a separate thing. That's a whole different thing. But we can both be critical about certain concepts and certain things that happen in the story, but at the same time appreciate the story as a whole, appreciate the production as a whole. So, in conclusion, what did I think? I didn't think there was an issue for me. Just, you know, it's a superficial watching of it as someone who had read the book and enjoyed the book, you know, as much as I could, except for that one part. I enjoyed the series. I enjoyed the Netflix series. I'm looking forward to season 2. I think that the Netflix series did justice, or even was a little better than the book, which is why I'm looking forward to season 2. I would love to see what they do with Anthony's story. So, that's it for me for today. Thank you for hanging out and indulging me, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!